It's a book about the history of the legendary comedy club called the Comic Strip, which is a club in New York City on 81st and 2nd. This is where we are right now, in the luxurious private office of the Comic Strip. This little room used to be the coat room, and it's where all the famous comedians got passed. Being passed means that you get the okay to perform in a club, and they used to come in here: Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Eddie Murphy, all of them, Ray Romano, Paul Reiser, Gilbert Gottfried. Everyone who got passed had to come into this little room and listen to the verdict. Richie Tienken is the guy who founded the club, and he is my co-author. He wrote the book with me, and the way he found it, they were driving in a cab, he and one of his partners, on the way to meet a third partner who was an entertainment lawyer. They had never met him before, but they realized they needed somebody in entertainment because they had no experience in entertainment. So on their way there, in the taxi, Richie's partner says to him, "Where are we going to find a place like this?" And Richie looks out the window and he goes, "Right there." And there's this bar called the Shannon Bar that had been closed. And they pull the car over and they look in and they go get the landlord, and he opens up the place and it looks perfect. And they look around and they say, "But we need more space. What about the backyard?" He goes, "We own the backyard. You could have that." He goes, "What about the backyard next door?" The next building. He goes, "We own that too. You could have that too." And so they had this amazing place. And what happened, and it was a very interesting story, was that just before they were ready to start construction, Richie had saved up like $15,000 for construction, and he gave it to this contractor. Monday morning, the contractor's supposed to show up. No show. Tuesday, no show. Wednesday, no show. The guy stole all of Richie's money, and he had no more money to build the club. And he was in a panic, and he wanted to get out of his lease. So he went to the landlord, this guy, David Eberhardt, who's actually in the book. I interviewed this guy because I thought it was a phenomenal story. David Eberhardt came around to the club, and he said, "Let me see, what do you want to do here?" And Richie told him. And he goes, "Listen, tomorrow morning, call this number. Tell them you need 2 electricians and 2 masons and 2 plumbers, whatever." It was like the Noah's Ark of construction people, 2 of each, right? And Richie's like, "Why are you doing this?" And he's like, "Because I'm an architect also and a builder." And he built the club for Richie. Now, if that hadn't happened, this club would never have existed. You know, and who knows where all these famous people would have been. They probably would have got started somewhere else, but it wouldn't have gone the same way. You know? So I thought that was an amazing story of synchronicity. And I wanted to make sure we got that guy's interview in the book. And he said in all 35 years he was only here for 1 show. He says he thinks he missed a lot. You know? This is the famous stage where all of those guys perform. This is it. You're here on the stage of the Comic Strip. And it's so cool because they put up the poster for the book on the stage, so that everybody that performs, they're performing in front of the poster to make them laugh. Dave Chappelle was in recently, Chris Rock comes in, you know, all the big stars, whenever they come to town, they come here, because this is where they started, it's their home club. And Richie had so much to do with that, because he always made them feel at home. He was a very nurturing presence. He was the bartender here. He started out as a carpenter. He actually physically built this place. See this wall with all these notches in it? Lucian made those notches himself. Richie always points that out when we do interviews. And when his job was finished, Richie said to him, "What are you going to do?" And he said, "I'm going to go back to Broadway and try to find a job on Broadway," because he had been a Broadway dancer. And Richie said to him, "Why don't you be a bartender?" And he said, "I don't know how to be a bartender." And he said, "Well, if someone asks for a beer, you give them a beer. Now you're a bartender." So he stayed for 25 years, and he became the face of the club. And when Richie went to LA with Eddie Murphy, Lucian ran the club. He taught him how to book the club over the phone. And, you know, people used to think he owned it, and Richie didn't mind, because everybody loved Lucian. And he was an interesting character. When you read the book, you'll see that everybody had a Lucian story.
Yeah, definitely. I don't remember whose story it was, but I think my favorite part of the whole book Someone was crashing at his place, and he was talking. Lucian was talking, and then he fell asleep, and then you woke up, and Lucian's still talking.
He didn't need anyone else to have a conversation. You could start it, and then you could go away someplace, come back a day later, and he'd still be talking. So Joe Bolster met a girl, and he took her home, and he missed his second spot, and he was so nervous because Lucian was very strict. So when he came back, Lucian said to Mr. Bolster, "You missed your second spot." And he said, "I know, but the girl I was with had a seizure." And Lucian said, "Petite mal or grand mal?" That's how detailed he was. He wanted to know exactly what the details were. So make sure you read, make them laugh. This book is incredible. 4 years of work.